Welcome to my mommy's podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Paleo Valley, a company that is near and dear to my heart. I really like all of their products, and my family especially loves their 100% grass-fed beef sticks, which are clean, gut-friendly, and protein-packed snack options. They never last long in my house because my kids enjoy them so much, and I love how seriously Paleo Valley takes creating healthy and environmentally friendly products. Their grass-fed beef sticks are the real deal. They're sourced from 100% grass-fed and grass-finished cows that are never fed grains or harmful antibiotics. And they come from small, family-owned farms right here in the USA that practice rotational grazing, meaning farmers literally rotate the pastures on which the cows graze, so they aren't feeding on the same soil forever, depleting its nutrients. This means that the cows are helping increase the nutrient density of the soil and put carbon back in the soil where it belongs. Another important difference: virtually every other meat snack on the market is made with a processing agent called encapsulated citric acid, or ECA. Companies use this in order to guarantee a long shelf life for their products, but one study from the University of Illinois at Chicago found that ECA can cause joint discomfort caused by stiffness and swelling, muscle aches, upset stomach, and more. Instead, Paleo Valley beef sticks use the old world methods of fermentation, which gives the beef sticks a long shelf life without harmful acids and chemicals. And they're also free of brominated vegetable oil, hormones, and MSG used in many products. And the natural fermentation process means that they're a natural source of probiotics as well. Check out these amazing grass-fed beef sticks and all Paleo Valley products at paleovalley.com/mama. And if you use the code MAMA15, you'll save 15% on your order. Again, that's PALEOVALLEY.com/MAMA and the code MAMA15 to save 15%. This podcast is brought to you by Sunday for Dogs, a new staple in our house that the newest family members could tell you the most about if they could talk. Lollipop and Hemingway, our two family dogs, are loving this food, and they get so excited when it's time to eat now. When we got them, I knew I didn't want to feed them overly processed kibble, and homemade options were a lot of work. And Sunday has been my solution. It's the first and only that I know of human-grade, air-dried dog food, combining the nutrition and taste of all natural human-grade foods with the ease of zero prep, ready-to-eat formulas. So Sundays is, in my opinion, the best way to feed your best friends. Sunday is easier for pet owners to manage than refrigerated human-grade dog food brands, so there's no fridge, no prep, no cleanup. And unlike most human-grade dog foods, Sundays is gently air-dried and ready to eat, versus the other brands that are cooked and frozen instead. It's as simple as just scoop it into their bowl and let them eat. In a blind test, Sundays outperformed other competitors 40-0, and they contain no artificial binders, synthetic additives, or general garbage. All of their ingredients are actually easy to pronounce. We worked out a special deal just for you. Receive 35% off your first order by going to sundaysfordogs/wellnessmama. That's sundaysfordogs.com/wellnessmama and use the code wellnessmama at checkout. Hello and welcome to the Wellness Mama podcast. I'm Katie from wellnessmama.com and wellness.com. That's wellness with an E on the end. And this episode is about how to eat to beat disease, the new science of how your body can heal itself. And I'm here with Dr. William Lee, who is a physician and scientist, and he's the president and medical director of the Angiogenesis Foundation and the author of the book by the title of this podcast, Eat to Beat Disease. In this episode, we go deep on specifics related to this topic, including how he got into this field, how health is the natural state of the body, and how often we just need to support the body and get out of its way. The surprising research showing that certain foods might have as much or more power as drugs to help the body beat certain diseases, how the body interprets messages from food in various ways, including foods that can prompt stem cell growth, how fasting comes into play, ways to reframe our food choices to support the body without feeling deprived. He debunks some urban legends about certain foods, and a couple of them might surprise you. His surprising research and his take on beer and wine drinking. And then we go a lot into gut health. We also have a fun wrap up at the end on a mutual topic that neither of us expected the other to be interested in. So very fun conversation for me. I think you will learn a lot as well, as Dr. Lee is a wealth of knowledge. So without further ado, let's join him. Dr. Lee, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's a real pleasure.
Well, I have so many fun questions, and we're going to go in so many fun directions today. But before we do, I have a note that you took a trip across the entire US, and I would love to hear a little bit more about that because I did the same thing with my kids a few years ago, and it was definitely memorable.
Well, the thing that I have always marveled about the United States is just how different parts of the country are from one place to the other. And we hear about I live near Boston, so near a big city, and we hear about big cities having great food, and you hear about places called food deserts. And so one of the things I was really interested in, besides looking at gorgeous scenery, is actually just to kind of experience what it was like to look for different types of food, healthy food that anyone can choose no matter where you are. That was one of my kind of my own personal agendas, is to actually take a look and to see it's going to be how difficult was it be. And what was really surprising is whether I was in Ohio or whether I was in Montana or whether I was in Wyoming, I always was able to find something that I recognized that I could eat that would help my body be healthier. And so that actually was really good news to me. And of course, we saw a lot of amazing country, which makes me much more appreciative of where we live.
That's wonderful. I had the same experience. I feel like it takes a little more work sometimes, but it's definitely possible. Not always as easy as our home kitchens, but that's encouraging that you had the same experience.
Right.
And you are most known for your work, at least to me, you're most known about your book, Eat to Beat Disease, The New Science of How Your Body Can Heal Itself. And I love even that languaging about the body healing itself, because I feel like it's important to keep that top of mind of often we think of looking for outside sources to heal us. And really, we work best when we support the body's natural process and in moving to a state of healing itself. But let's start really broad. And I would love to hear a little of how you got into this specific field of research. And then also, how is it really possible to eat to beat disease? Because I think this is a really important concept.
Yeah, well, I'm a physician, so trained in internal medicine, which means I take care of young and old, men and women, healthy and sick. And although in medicine, we're trained to write prescriptions and to chase diseases with more and more interventions, the reality is on a personal level, my philosophy has always been to keep people healthy. And if they get sick, they fall off the wagon. Kind of, how do you get people back on the path of health, which is really where our body wants to be? Now, that's really important because when I was in medical school and in training, one of the things that we were always trained to do is to identify disease, define disease. What is cancer? What is heart disease? What is diabetes? What is dementia? And what is obesity? So we get really good in the medical community, speaking for myself, and identifying and labeling disease and explaining why they happen. But actually, what I got more interested in is how do we define health? What is health? And I realized that even when I was answering that question, I would often say health is just the absence of disease. If you're not sick, you're healthy, right? But that actually always wound up being really frustrating to me and not a very satisfactory answer. So fast forward, I actually wound up starting a nonprofit organization called the Angiogenesis Foundation. And angiogenesis is how your body grows blood vessels. And it turns out that that's a very important feature of many diseases, more than 70. But even more importantly, our circulation, our blood vessels are critical for health. Now, in the work that I've done with my nonprofit, we've actually helped to develop more than 40 FDA-approved new treatments for cancer, complications of diabetes, and even vision loss. And so it's been a thrilling ride to actually find, to be able to be involved with developing new treatments that can help patients. When I wear my kind of medical hat, that gives me great satisfaction. But I realized as I was getting more and more successful in this, that the question that my patients were always asking me is, hey, doc, what should I be eating? And I started to realize that the biggest opportunity that I could bring that I could address and I could really try to bring to the forefront was not how to actually chase diseases and how to treat diseases. That's important. That's never going to stop. But how could we roll the clock back and prevent disease in the first place? And that gets back to the question of what is health. And that led me to really ask the question, health can't be the quote absence of something. It has to be the result of something else. And so that something else happens to be your own body. Our own bodies are hardwired to heal itself, which is really remarkable. And that, to me, is the clue to how to actually choose foods that can activate those hardwired systems to help our body do what it really wants to do.
And I know you have a TED Talk about this as well, that's gotten a whole lot of views. I'll link to that in the show notes about how we can actually eat to starve cancer. So before we go deeper, I want to touch on all disease, but I'd love for you to just hit some high points of that specific approach, because I'm hearing from quite a few people who have cancer or have a loved one with cancer right now.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, cancer is that one disease that we all fear. Every single one of us has been touched, probably 1 or 2 or maybe 0 degrees of separation by this dreaded disease. And here's kind of like the news flash. Cancer is something that we all, healthy people, form in our bodies all the time. I've got cancer in my body. You've got cancer in your body. Everybody listening to this has cancer in their body. And the reason is our human bodies are made out of 40 trillion human cells. And these cells, to keep us alive, have to divide. They have to make more of themselves, right? So you get rid of some old ones, the old ones that are actually retiring, and you get the new ones. And the new ones are really what allows us to go day to day, getting better. One of the big things about dividing cells is that if they don't go perfectly and you make 1 or 2 mistakes, think about 40 trillion cells, like 40 trillion things in an assembly line being assembled at the same time all day long, 24/7 for 70 or 80 years. You're going to have some mistakes. And all it takes is 1 or 2 mistakes, and you've got what we call a microscopic cancer. It's a mutation in a cell. And so from the time we're born, from when we're young kids to however old the listeners are today, we've got these tiny little mistakes, microscopic cancers being formed. But the great news is that microscopic cancers are like pimples. You probably have a few forming on your back all the time, and you'll never ever know it because they go away by themselves. And when they go away, when cancers go away, it's because our immune system wings by and prevents them from actually becoming a problem. It's like cops on a beat, seeing a kind of a dude that doesn't look so savory on the corner, puts them in the back of the squad car and takes them away. Now, the other reason that cancers don't grow normally, okay, is because our body has this tremendous health defense system. Like the immune system, another system is the angiogenesis system. Our body wants to feed our healthy organs, but when there's a cancer, it doesn't allow blood flow to feed the cancer. So that's what I gave my TED Talk about, is how do we actually get rid of those blood vessels that cancers want to grow for themselves. So I've been involved more than 20 years with developing new treatments, biotech treatments, many of which have been FDA approved, that can cut off the blood supply to a cancer. It's not chemo, it's not radiation, it's not immunotherapy. It's actually it's a standalone way of treating cancer called anti-angiogenesis. It's changed the game because it doesn't have the side effects of chemo. And it's very natural because it helps your body just starve the cancer. But with the amazing thing that I talked about at TED was, having done all this with drugs and biotech, what I realized is that we can use the same system to test food. So when you test green tea and soy and cabbage and herbs and spices and citrus, and into these same systems we use for drug development, the jaw-dropping result was that many of the foods surrounding us have as much and sometimes greater power locked inside something that's edible and delicious than the drugs that we've been spending 20 years creating itself. And so this is foodist medicine. I wound up actually becoming a real proponent of using science to look at nutrition. And this allows, I think, the medical community to participate in this conversation as well. Previously, it's sort of like, well, it's nutrition. We're not a nutritionist, the doctors say, or they don't want to believe in it. But, every cancer patient always asks their doctor, hey, doc, what should I be eating for myself? And the answer is often, don't worry about it. Or you can eat anything you want. Or, there's no data to support anything. And that's now changed. Just 3 weeks ago, a new paper came out to show that if you eat 5 grams of dietary fiber a day, if you have cancer and you're being treated with something called immunotherapy, 5 grams of dietary fiber is the amount you'd have in a medium-sized pear or a large apple. Okay, not very much. That having 5 grams of dietary fiber a day decreases the risk of mortality, death, while you're getting treated by 30%. So what you eat does matter. And in fact, it can be a matter of life and death.
That's so fascinating. And I'm so glad to see this research catching up because I feel like the best outcomes happen when we can merge nutrition and the latest science and also probably some age old techniques that we're now learning the science to support that cultures have known for years and years and years. And I've seen, for instance, a graphic online where a patient went to a doctor and the doctor told them, "Oh, you have a metabolic disease." And they were like, "Oh, so should I change my diet?" And the doctor said, "No, you should take a pill." And I love that that's now not what's happening, that we're seeing people like you who are in the research who are applying this and we're seeing good results. It's so exciting. So on that note, I would love to hear maybe some of these top foods that you're finding in the research that are really surprising. Like you mentioned fiber, like what are some of the others that have a really surprising potential here?
Yeah, well, so being somebody who works in food as medicine, I have been gratified to discover that it's not one food, quote, the old superfood idea, but in fact, there's more than 200 foods and more being discovered literally every single week, foods that can activate our body's health defenses. And so, the question you're asking is so important is what are some good foods that people should know? So the bottom line is that each time you eat, encounter food is a shot on goal. So every time you have a shot on goal, go ahead and do something that's good for your health defenses. And so that's 5 by 5 by 5. Now, which foods and which health defenses? This is why, I kind of created all these simple tables and charts in my book. You can actually take a look at a defense system. There's a list of 100 or so foods in some of the systems. And what I tell people to do, just, when you open up the book, take a picture with your cell phone of the page. Actually, first of all, open up the book, circle the ones that you like, your faves, and then take a picture of it. And that way you can just always call it up when you're actually going out shopping, or even when you're at a restaurant, you're sitting out looking at the menu. Man, what should I eat? Well, of course, go for your preferences. But among your preferences, take a look and to see if your preferences actually have any of the good stuff, because that's a shot on goal. You can actually activate your health defenses. And now you've done something that you want that's also good for yourself.
That's a great tip. And I do feel like the body starts to also get very intuitive and crave these foods the more we feed it good things, and that it's a compounding thing. But I often like to think in terms of, instead of just calories from food, what is the most nutrient density I can get into the calories I'm already going to be consuming? Like, how can I best support my body through my food choices, which naturally leads to very vibrant colors and lots of herbs and foods that are great for you. It's also way more exciting to eat that way. This episode is brought to you by Paleo Valley, a company that is near and dear to my heart. I really like all of their products, and my family especially loves their 100% grass-fed beef sticks, which are clean, gut-friendly, and protein-packed snack options. They never last long in my house because my kids enjoy them so much, and I love how seriously Paleo Valley takes creating healthy and environmentally friendly products. Their grass-fed beef sticks are the real deal. They're sourced from 100% grass-fed and grass-finished cows that are never fed grains or harmful antibiotics. And they come from small, family-owned farms right here in the USA that practice rotational grazing, meaning farmers literally rotate the pastures on which the cows graze, so they aren't feeding on the same soil forever, depleting its nutrients. This means that the cows are helping increase the nutrient density of the soil and put carbon back in the soil where it belongs. Another important difference: virtually every other meat snack on the market is made with a processing agent called encapsulated citric acid, or ECA. Companies use this in order to guarantee a long shelf life for their products, but one study from the University of Illinois at Chicago found that ECA can cause joint discomfort caused by stiffness and swelling, muscle aches, upset stomach, and more. Instead, Paleo Valley beef sticks use the old world methods of fermentation, which gives the beef sticks a long shelf life without harmful acids and chemicals. And they're also free of brominated vegetable oil, hormones, and MSG used in many products. And the natural fermentation process means that they're a natural source of probiotics as well. Check out these amazing grass-fed beef sticks and all Paleo Valley products at paleovalley.com/mama. And if you use the code MAMA15, you'll save 15% on your order. Again, that's PALEOVALLEY.com/MAMA and the code MAMA15 to save 15%. This podcast is brought to you by Sunday for Dogs, a new staple in our house that the newest family members could tell you the most about if they could talk. Lollipop and Hemingway, our two family dogs, are loving this food, and they get so excited when it's time to eat now. When we got them, I knew I didn't want to feed them overly processed kibble, and homemade options were a lot of work. And Sunday has been my solution. It's the first and only that I know of human-grade, air-dried dog food, combining the nutrition and taste of all natural human-grade foods with the ease of zero prep, ready-to-eat formulas. So Sundays is, in my opinion, the best way to feed your best friends. Sundays easier for pet owners to manage than refrigerated human-grade dog food brands, so there's no fridge, no prep, no cleanup. And unlike most human-grade dog foods, Sundays is gently air-dried and ready to eat, versus the other brands that are cooked and frozen instead. It's as simple as just scoop it into their bowl and let them eat. In a blind test, Sundays outperformed other competitors 40-0, and they contain no artificial binders, synthetic additives, or general garbage. All of their ingredients are actually easy to pronounce. We worked out a special deal just for you. Receive 35% off your first order by going to sundaysfordogs/wellnessmama. That's sundaysfordogs.com/wellnessmama and use the code wellnessmama at checkout. I know you have so much more research than we can cover in a 1 hour podcast, including a series of masterclasses. And I want to make sure we touched on these. I'll put links in the show notes, but can you talk about your masterclass series?
Yeah, well, my masterclass series is something I do. It's for free. I do it, every month, and you can just go to my website, drwilliamli.com, and check out what I'm doing and sign up for them. But here's the reason why I did it. That the reason is actually quite important. When the pandemic was first declared in 2020, I was like everyone else. I was sort of, in my house, staring out the window, wondering, what could we do? And look, I'm a doctor, and I knew very well that there were no prescriptions to write at the time. The hospitals couldn't do anything for us, and people didn't know what to do. And in fact, they didn't want to go to the doctor. And I realized at that moment something really profound, which is that this was a moment that we could see that doctors and health systems and hospitals couldn't do everything for us. And yet here we were, myself included, making a decision, 3 or 5 times a day. I had to go out to buy food. I had to go figure out what to put in my fridge. I had to figure out what to cook every day. And it was never more clear to me. There was information that people needed to learn about how to make some really good, healthy choices. How do you get to know your body, your 5 health defenses? How do you know which foods are actually good for our health defenses? And of course, immune system is such an important thing, but all of our health defenses are an opportunity for us to kind of lower our risk for cancer and heart disease and diabetes and obesity and Alzheimer's, all these important conditions. And here was that moment that I realized that, there was an opportunity for me. I really felt a sense of mission to be able to do these free masterclasses. And what's really great is that, I've had up to 8,000 people from 38 countries sign up for a single masterclass. And so the idea that, we had this like crazy time we were dealing with, but we learn how to use digital medium like Zoom or, these virtual things to be able to touch people around the planet was incredibly empowering. And so what I'm trying to do is, kind of set into motion an Eat to Beat Disease movement that puts the power of health in everyone's own pocket and there's no, you don't have to rely on the health system as step number 1. Now, obviously, you should see your doctor. You should have a doctor. It's not a replacement for, but it's all that healthcare that we do between visits to the doctor's office. And so from the masterclass, which you can sign up for, I also, for people who really want to do a deep dive, I created an online course that allows you to actually drill in to really understand the nuances of our 5 health defenses and the specific foods and how do you buy and store and prepare the foods as well. So, it's something that I found myself gravitating more and more towards. This is really, kind of like what you're doing, which is how do you get the word out about important information that can change people's lives in ways that aren't burdensome, but actually are empowering.
Yeah, that's so important. And you have so many great resources. Like I said, I'll link to where people can find those. So if you guys are listening while you're on the go, that's wellnessmama.fm. We'll have a link to the book, the masterclasses, and your TED Talk, as well as a lot of other information I've found from you online. And as we get near the end of our time, a couple last questions I love to ask. The first being if there is a book or a number of books, of course, besides your own, that's been very impactful for lots of people, but that have had a profound impact on your life. And if so, what they are and why.
You know what? I will tell you that some of the books that have been most impactful for me when it comes to health have actually been cookbooks. And I love to look at cookbooks that are coming from food cultures, whether it's Italy, whether it's Japan, whether it's China. And then if you take a look at within an area like Italy, for example, if you look at the foods of Sardinia or the foods of the Amalfi Coast, these are things now on Amazon. You could easily search out Amalfi Coast cookbook, and they'll pop up all these local regional recipes. I find those to be incredibly transformative because it teaches me something that I didn't know before that would actually entice me to try something I haven't done before and to use ingredients that I just might learn to love. I mentioned the Amalfi Coast, but I'll tell you, I looked at a couple of cookbooks from Venice, Italy, which is a place I visited in the past, but it's so different because a lot of seafood and a lot of vegetables that we don't normally encounter. But I wanted to try to be challenged to learn things that I haven't learned before. And so I would say, cookbooks are actually been really influential for me. I'll tell you another book. This is not about health per se, that actually was really influential to me. There's a field of mixed martial arts, which, we see on television, and it's a kind of a big deal now. And it's a combat form that's a sport that involves using different skills like boxing and wrestling and kickboxing and judo and all that kind of stuff. Well, I read a book that was written by the father of mixed martial arts. Well, he's been attributed to be one of the fathers of mixed martial arts by Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee was a martial artist. He died many, many years ago in the 70s, but he came from Hong Kong. He was an American, actually. He went back to Hong Kong, grew up in America, and he realized that sticking to one style of anything, karate, judo, taekwondo, is too limiting. And that what you really want to be able to do is to adapt yourself to learn different styles and to adapt yourself to different circumstances. And so he wrote a book called The Tao, T-A-O, of Jeet Kune Do, JKD, which is actually his style. And it's an old book now. You can still get it online. There's a Bruce Lee Foundation that reissued it, a wonderful collector's version, but it really talks about his philosophy. So although he was a fighter and a martial artist, he was actually a philosopher. He studied philosophy in college. And so I sometimes will go back to read that because, he talks about this idea of being like water, like to actually navigate through life. You don't want to be rigid and broken like a branch that could snap, but you want to be flexible and adapt yourself. And I think that's really important when it comes to food and health, is to learn how to know yourself and adapt yourself to your circumstances around you. And that's actually also been something that's been quite influential for me.
That's a new recommendation. I'm actually really personally excited to check out. I've, in the last year or so, started training actually in Jeet Kune Do and also some other arts like Kali and different forms of that. And I love the movement aspect of them, but I also love the meditative aspect of those patterns and the energy interaction with another person. But that's so amazing because I've never heard anyone else talk about Jeet Kune Do. That's so exciting.
No, that's cool. Well, you should go to check out the Bruce Lee Foundation, which was the family foundation that his daughter and his wife set up, and they just republished this incredible philosophy book called The Tao, T-A-O, of Jeet Kune Do, and it really talks about. It's all his original philosophies and writings. So really worthwhile for anybody who wants to delve a little bit more into the roots of how to be in touch with your body, how to be flexible and adaptive, and why you want to break away from rigid styles of anything, rigid styles of eating, rigid styles of fad dieting, rigid styles of fasting, even. This is about getting in touch with who you are yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited to check this out. And this may actually have already answered the last question I had for you, or at least touch on it, which is if you had any parting advice for the listeners today that could be related to something we've talked about or entirely unrelated.
Well, no, I do actually. I'm somebody who really appreciates food culture. I love foods from traditions that actually really value these recipes that have been handed down for hundreds of years. I've had my fair share of fancy meals over the course of my life and my career, but honestly, the traditional foods that, frankly, families and peasants ate for celebration or just even simple eating is something I really enjoy. And so I think that, I'm a big proponent in respecting the food cultures that are out there. They're usually incredibly delicious and tasty. They've been time proven. They're not going to be harmful to you. They're probably going to be healthy for you. But what it gives you the opportunity to do, and this is really my parting words, is to love your food, to love your health. If you can align what you love about something that you're going to eat, along with how much you care about your health, now you've got the perfect alignment of how to actually make a food choice, how to plan a meal, and how to actually share food with your community in a way that's healthy for everyone.
That's beautiful. And I think very applicable to moms who are often the food preparers for our families. And I think a perfect wrapping up point for today, although I could talk to you for so long because you're such a wealth of knowledge. I'm very, very grateful for you being here today and sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks as always to all of you who are listening for sharing your most valuable resources, your time, your energy, and your attention with us today. We're both so grateful that you did, and I hope that you will join me again on the next episode of the Wellness Mama podcast. If you're enjoying these interviews, would you please take 2 minutes to leave a rating or review on iTunes for me? Doing this helps more people to find the podcast, which means even more moms and families can benefit from the information. I really appreciate your time, and thanks as always for listening.